From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars pop culture and the ultimate adventure, discussing life and ranking life itself. I'm Cat Knapsack. This is Star Wars Ranked, and that, hello sir, is Joseph Scripture.
I am very happy to be here.
We are happy to be here, or trying to happy to be here in face of the world. So more on that later. But right now we are here to rank, and I always sometimes play with the titles, but I'm just going to try to say our favorite Star Wars BTS people.
The stars people behind the stars.
Yes. And the list is wide open. I don't want to accidentally take away any choice you might want to have, Joseph. I think in the spirit of it, this is not like George Lucas. This is not Kathleen Kennedy. This is not directors, writers, or any of those kind of folks that are at desks with pens and paper creating the words and everything. These are the people around it. These are the people that throughout the years, now 50 plus years of Lucasfilm and any companies or folks that come through and work with them, that make their dreams come true so we can all enjoy them. This is going to be a 10-to-1 list, and we'll just see. I've been wanting to do this for a while because there's so many wonderful names to discuss, but it's been a part of our ForceCenter lore talking about some of these names. But, I don't know if that makes any sense, Joseph, and if you're ready to list based off a vague direction.
I'm always ready to do things off of vague directions. I like the new way we've been doing ranked because we don't run the list past each other, which means we kind of figure out what it might mean as we go. And I think one of the things that I was like, I almost sent you a message, but then I was like, it'd be more fun to make it part of the show.
Nice.
How much, when you're thinking of this topic of, the stars behind the scenes of Star Wars, how much are you thinking about their contribution versus a person that we spent some time with in behind the scenes documentaries, and we're kind of in love with the charm of the person as well as the work that they have done?
You just nailed it right there. I was putting a little list of possible candidates today, and I was like, is it just because I love that interview clip? Because I could pick any one of these people because there's so many wonderful achievements and contributions. So yeah, I don't know. I forced myself to maybe go on to like, no, that person deserves it versus I think that person's fun.
Yeah. Like I have one person that is just like, this is about the contribution because I don't know a lot about them and I haven't watched as many interviews. But then there are other people who are like, that is an incredible contribution to Star Wars. But it really is that one quote from that one interview that is stuck in my head in a beautiful way, Yeah,
this might be, we could change it to our favorite moments in Empire of Dreams or the ILM doc.
Well, and I will say that too, is like, my list has an original trilogy in bias and a prequel trilogy bias because I don't feel like we've spent as much time with some of the sort of deeper cut folks from this era. Like there've been the Disney Plus behind the scenes, and there definitely been some people who stand out, but we haven't sort of lived with them as long,
Mm-hmm. I really agree with that. And that's not a criticism. It's just kind of like you said, time. I think we started to spend time with these folks in the 80s and late 70s when the books and the magazines were coming out. That's how we all, but I think even over time, as we look back and celebrate 40 years and 50 years and the achievements of ILM, these are all stars. So we'll see if we can get that 20 years from now for the 30th of Force Awakens. More. All right. Well, if you watch your show, that's our preamble. We're calling it at the line of scrimmage, like a quarterback. We're going to call the play here. Work our way 10-to-1. I'll start so that Joseph could end with number one. But we're going to dive on in here. I'll start here, Joseph, like I said. And this is actually, it's so funny. It's kind of what you're talking about. I had this thought of, well, who are some of the folks in the sequel trilogy era, the 2012 and beyond names that are some of the designers and some of the artists and some of the positions that we aren't as familiar with. And the only reason I kind of know them is the art of books. And I'm going to start by saying, if this is our favorite behind the scenes Lucasfilm and Star Wars employees, I'm going to start off with Phil Shostak. Now, creative art manager, part of the story group, and in his spare time, the art of author. And without a doubt, acknowledge Phil sometimes hangs around ForceCenter in terms of the audience, watches, listens, pops up in the chat. But that's not just us. He does that for the community. He's out there in the community. And I think he's putting forth these wonderful designs with his books by, gathering all the art and getting the little interviews with some of these names that we aren't as familiar with. And the only reason I kind of know those names is these books and the passion that Phil puts into just kind of highlighting this kind of stuff. And in keeping with kind of an old, long-time tradition of Lucasfilm, and he's been there since the 2000s, is a little jack of all trades. Everyone kind of works in different departments or categories. And like I said, the art of books, in my mind, that's a great career. That's Friday night for him. He's got to put him in. He's got other work to do. So we're big fans of Phil. Bummed that you and I just couldn't get to Japan this year for Star Wars Celebration, but bummed because Phil was going to be there, and finally I was going to be looking for someone that wasn't Christopher Guest. His social media profile pictures as Nigel Tufnell. So my number 10 is Phil Shostak.
I mean, it is funny how much we become so attached to people's social media avatars. Even people I know in real life, I'm sometimes every once in a while like, well, you're Dung Pile, right? I'm sorry, I forgot your real human name because I'm just used to, and like, oh, I didn't recognize you. You weren't looking up and to the left with an ice cream cone, so I don't recognize you as a person. And with Phil, it's like, I rewatched Spinal Tap recently, and I was like, I know that isn't Phil. But the association has become so strong because that's what he uses as his avatar everywhere, that it would be, great to meet him in person. I think a lot of behind the scenes folks in Star Wars since the beginning are fans, either fans of genre stuff going back and are excited to work on new genre stuff back in the 70s and 80s. But so many people now, it's a standard thing to say if you get interviewed. Like, I've loved Star Wars since I was a kid. This is a dream come true. And Phil, to me, is somebody who is clearly a fan. I think watches and listens to a lot of the Star Wars talking shows because he's interested in hearing what folks think. He's contributing to the galaxy, but also in a lot of his social media posts, I feel like, yep, he's a fan. He's got his favorite background weirdos and is going to weigh in on, Max Rebo Lim opinions in a joking way, but, also post stuff that's really like, that's the heart of Star Wars. That's the meaning. That's the why. And he's been, posting some of that stuff lately as well. So it is wonderful to see somebody be a part of the franchise who is a fan on kind of every level, in my opinion. And how that is not a bad thing, and sometimes it gets thrown around in terms of like the directors. I don't want to fan Star Wars. No, the franchise is 50 years old. We're all touched and moved by it in some way. So love that there. All right, so that is my number 10. Well, you start listing your number 9 because I don't edit. I dropped my pen and I can't keep track of any of this. Well, this is terrible. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even write. I'm going to buy myself some time by typing live on air because it's also hard to do it this way because I have my these people must be on the list.
Yes.
I don't want to throw them on right away because then you end up with potential awkwardness.
yes
when you get down to number 1. So I'm going to start with somebody that I don't know a lot about the person. I read an interview this morning, but it's just one of those names that I get really excited about because of the contribution to Star Wars. And that is the costume designer of the prequels, Trisha Bagar. The whole buildup to the prequels, I was a member of whatever it was back then, Hyperspace. Actually, I got that in 2001. My girlfriend gave it the Hyperspace membership where you could get to see some of the behind the scenes stuff as it was happening in the build up to Attack of the Clones. I think around 2001, my girlfriend at the time gave that to me as a gift. And it was the first time that I really started to kind of have a relationship with some of the behind the scenes people where I knew their names.
Mm.
And I'll be perfectly honest, I don't remember a bunch of the interviews or behind the scenes with Trisha Bagar, but I know that that's why I know her name, because it wasn't
Hmm.
just flashing by in the credits. Um, but the reason I wanted to include her is the designs of the prequels are fantastic from all sorts of
Mm.
different perspectives. From like okay, the Jedi need to all sort of fit in this vibe, but they need to be different and unique. There's all sorts of aliens and cultures that were costumed, but honestly, it is so much Padme. It
Yeah.
is taking this challenge of how do we take all of these influences and build up this really multifaceted character and show that character, show when is this Amidala, when is this a
Hmm.
person uh, wearing ornate costumes that communicate her status, her culture, that advocate for whatever she is advocating for as a politician. Where is she totally just I'm Padme, I'm a more relaxed human being. Where is she somewhere in between? Um, just fantastic. In the article I read this morning with Trisha Bagar, I learned a lot more about how much of the materials, particularly from Attack of the Clones, all came from Scotland, because Trisha Bagar is Scottish. And I learned a lot more about how much work was done on Attack of the Clones. This was an article for the 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones
Mm.
about how it was the most difficult one, because at the last minute, George decided to shoot it in chronological order to make it easier on the actors.
Mm.
But the costume department had been working on the costumes for the end of the film, not the beginning of the film. So like, whoa, okay. And just like
Mm. Mm.
amazing stories about not just the sort of philosophical brilliance of the costumes, but the
Right.
practical magic of physically getting
Mm.
that done in time to be put on the actors.
Mm.
So I want to make sure to shout out Trisha Bagar.
I think it's a great choice at number 9. It could even be higher, but that's fun. This list, just because of the legacy, right? Of those prequel costumes, and we could go to something we say a lot here for some things of us being kind of on the outside of the prequel generation. Of a lot of people don't like the films, but they were talking about insert blank, right? Sound effect,
Mm-hmm.
design, costumes, but the costumes are definitely one of those things, and I think it goes beyond that. It wasn't just because. Um, Plus, the costumes are kind of cool. They were amazing. They were stories
Mm-hmm.
to themselves, and we are celebrating here, behind the scenes stuff. So when you start learning about what went into them and what the thought that went into them, and yeah, you're right. We could just do this as highlight Padme's outfits and costumes, but like it's everything. And this is the first time her name was one of the first times I paid attention to this, not to the behind the scenes stuff. We'll talk about a lot of the all stars of the '80s, I'm sure, if I align with Lucasfilm. But I had never, and I went to film school for a couple years. Was one of those. I watch every Oscar film and have a scorecard at the ceremony type of film nerds for a little bit in the '90s. I never really paid attention to this until her work showed up in front of my face in Star Wars. So I know she's going strong, a lot of Outlander stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not just Star Wars. This is celebrating someone's skill set. But in terms of a Star Wars fan, you're absolutely right. She destroyed, killed in her skill set for the prequels. Just an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to go with another one that is a name we know. Or am I? Oh, yeah, no. It's a name we know, but similar. Like, I don't say... like, I just... when I think of where we are in terms of podcasting in Star Wars and doing this since 2014, Jedi Alliance days and beyond for both of us there, I think of we're plugged into a system, and this was for a long time the name at the top. And I can't sit here and list off all the things she did. I just know she existed. I know she was important. And I know I got hyped up because of things that were probably had her fingerprints on it. And that's now retired Lynn Hale, who was the vice president of publicity and communications for Lucasfilm. 35 years in the company. And yeah, I'm reading from the wonderful folks at Wikipedia. she comes on board right during the kind of the special edition era. Works the prequels. We got the Clone Wars television series, and it's Star Wars. So you think, wow, what kind of publicity does it need? It does need it, and then a community formed up around that. We're part of that community. And like I said, I've never interacted. I probably passed her or something at an event I was fortunate to be at, but she's behind the scenes, truly. But when she retired 2021, you just kept hearing just, man, how important she was to that side of the franchise. And drawn on your experiences now of putting together a film, and then great, that was hard. But now I got to tell people about it, and that's harder. That's still true for Star Wars, right? We're in there, and I'm not saying like every trailer, everything like comes from her. I'm just saying this department or publicity and communications and speaking on things, like we're out here complaining, not us necessarily, but we're out here complaining about Mandalorian and Grogu's released in May and we haven't seen one spot yet. Like we worry about that kind of stuff, the PR and the publicity and the communications. We worry about who's going to events, or we want to go to events, all those kind of things that the podcast world is plugged into. But here she was at the top, and she represents to me just the thing I think a lot of us, whether we fully understand it or not. I've never worked there. Hell, I've never even been up to the ranch and seen the Yoda statue. I know you've been fortunate to do that, but and have a great social media photo that I think I would only recognize you from.
That is also 16 years old now, so I should maybe address that. But.
Nah, it's great. It's a great photo. But Lucasfilm, even now, yes, it's got the tentacles of a giant corporation all through it. We know that. That's a reality, unfortunately. But she represents kind of the Lucasfilm as a family vibe. And I'm when she retired, it was like I felt happy for her, sad for us, and I didn't work there. And I wanted to celebrate Lynn Hale and all her work and accomplishments.
I think that is a great pick. I think that I think there are a couple of different ways to think about it. Definitely for myself, it is what I'm going through right now. I finished the film, and now I need to advertise it and get it out into the world. And that is, I do have some experience from that, from running a theater company and doing plays and putting on shows. But to do it at the scale that a film requires, and a scale that a franchise like Star Wars requires, at some point, I think creative people do need to kind of almost silo themselves off and be like, I'm making the thing. And then I need somebody entirely separate from me to figure out, like, what's the best way to communicate about the thing. And I think if anybody wants to, I don't even know all what Lynn Hale did at her level, right? But for me, when I want to have a little appreciation of it, I think about like, okay, imagine you're just like hanging out with some friends, and you saw a movie that nobody else has heard of, and it was so good, and you don't really want to spoil it, but you want to sell it to people. How many of us have been in that, like, okay, well, it stars this guy, and then it's kind of a Western, but it's not really a Western, but then they're all this amazing thing. Oh, but I can't tell you about that. And you just fluster until you just get down to it. Just trust me, you got to check it out.
Yeah.
That's basically, this job at a high level, right? Of like, how do we communicate why this is magical, important, special?
Yeah.
Why is it worth your time? What is the story of the story?
Yeah. And in this IP heavy, everything's coming at you fast kind of world, is how and why you can connect with it. Indeed. Love it. Well, there we go. Number 8, Lynn Hale. Right. But now, number 7, you. I
might throw my pen on the ground to buy myself a minute.
All right,
Yeah, because there's so many. It's kind of all over the map, and it's so hard. But all right, and then there's I feel safe because I think you got that one, Ken. So I am going to go. You know what? He should be higher, but he's one of my, for certain, he's got to be in there. So I'm just going to go for it. And it continues a theme for me. It is a person that I also met while watching all of the behind the scenes for the prequels. but it was the second person who came to my mind when you brought up this topic, and that is Swordmaster Nick Gillard.
Ooh, that's a good one. Oh yeah.
One of the people who most fired my imagination and my excitement for the prequels. I think most people know who this is. The person who choreographed all of the amazing lightsaber fights in the prequel era, played the character Sin Dralig, who is fighting Anakin in the Hollow video that Yoda and Anakin flipped through, and also appears briefly in the Clone Wars. Back in the prequel days, when there were parts of them I liked and parts of them I was really grumpy about, but I liked the prequels more than my friends, but I was Star Wars, and so I was just excited and I wanted to gobble up everything. Almost every conversation ended with, but the lightsaber fights. And I so love the lightsaber fights. I've told this before, but in 2000, my friend and I did a sketch where we played the Odd Couple, and then they got mad and had a lightsaber fight that just was the fight from Phantom Menace that we tried to reconstruct. And it's like, this man was on my mind all the time. And to see that it was really like this one guy, this visionary, who's coming up with his entire new language of lightsaber fighting, and builds and builds and builds. And I remember people being so mad about Attack the Clones. I loved Attack the Clones, even though I agreed with the criticism, is when people were so mad about it. And I kept just saying, like, yeah, but Anakin and Obi-Wan, they're going to fight for like a half an hour, and Nick Gillard is going to choreograph that. And it's good. You just like, don't sleep on Nick Gillard. It's probably something I said drunkenly many times at bars. And just the sort of the affinity for him, because his work gave me so much joy, and all of those behind the scenes videos gave me such a relationship with his face, who he was, that he wasn't just them, the people somewhere who made the lightsaber fights. It was him. This weekend, my wife and I watched an episode of classic Doctor Who, and as a younger man, he had been the stunt coordinator on this particular episode called Silver Nemesis. And we watched the making of on the Blu-ray. And it was one of those times that I startled my wife, because like we're watching a nice, making of about an episode of Doctor Who from the late 80s. And Nick Gillard comes on, and I just went, whoa! And I was like, what's wrong? Like, it's Nick Gillard. It's Swordmaster Nick Gillard. So to me, it was like the next day where you're like, maybe we should talk about this. And like, well, who's a person who literally makes me scream when I see them in a different context? So Nick Gillard.
Nah, this is great. Absolutely great. I kind of didn't put him down on my list, and I anger at myself that I didn't. This is absolutely the spirit of the conversation. And for me, the lightsaber fights in the prequels, I was always aware of who he was and what he did. And of course, just famous clips of, Ewan McGregor going, yeah, we bent the lightsaber. We bent the practice lightsaber. We got into it and all that. But I was one of those ones like, I don't know. I preferred the Empire Strikes Back lightsaber fighter, Return of the Jedi. I don't know, and I thought there was a little too, almost a little too choreographed and this and that. And I about 5-6 years ago had this big switch of just thinking back to the time. This is the era of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, The Matrix. The standards around had been raised from previous fights. No disrespect to what was pulled off in the original trilogy, but you could shoot things differently, maybe have a little more into the fights, and also I love the New Hope Obi-Wan Vader fight. I do not want anything reimagined for that at all. But it is what it is. It is it is of its time, and it's of its performers, and it's a different stuff, all that kind of stuff. And I just had this like really turn and twist of my mind on the prequel lightsaber fights, and now respecting Gillard's work, and I always want to be clear, I always did, but like now I just saw it all in a new light, and saw what was going into it, saw how it measured up, and maybe at times exceeded some of the other sequences in other films during this era. the 99 to 05 era. And love it. And he's a rock star. And his name is known. His name inspires conversations, thoughts, opinions of varying degrees. But all of it is positive towards his work. And absolutely deserves to be celebrated.
Yeah. And he's just got a real chill vibe in all the interviews. There's a real like, yeah, I did this. I did that. It was pretty cool. So,
that's what you want with a swordsmaster. You would a swordmaster. You don't want some really irritable, grouchy, tense, trained
really
swordsman.
And his hands are always moving. Like, maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah. In the behind the scenes for the Doctor Who thing, he was talking about like, there were some stunts I wanted to do myself, but that wasn't my job on this one. It was to watch over everything that was happening, and there's this great sense of restraint. Yeah.
I love that. All right. Well, that's number 7. Number 6, I am going to another longtime employee, one of the early names that we got to know in the newer eras, meaning, not from magazines depicting Return of the Jedi's filmmaking processes in 81 and 82, 83. And that is the keeper of the holocron, Leland Chee. Going to Leland Chee. I have never met him directly, but I've been around him early Star Wars Celebration stuff like 2015 and 2017. And the energy he has is just warm and wonderful. I love when I first learned, I'm trying to remember when I first learned that he existed and he had this job. And it might have been like early Twitter days, like, the Holocron Keeper username that I think he had, like, maybe it's a little bit different, but it's basically that. And just thinking, wait a minute, this guy has this is a job kind of thing. And just impressed with it and how important it is. And him and the story group and all the thing that kind of emerges post Disney sale elevates a lot of these folks, whether they want to be or not, or whether they don't want to get into it, but whether they dive into the conversations, but also say, why am I here? Leland has never been that.
No.
Leland has never been that. He has just gone around, done his job, both in Star Wars and with Indiana Jones as well. Being reminded of that by reading a little bit of his bio here, and is just it's just part of why we show up here is the canon of it all and the information of it all. Star Wars is still the greatest source of trivia nights in the world, I believe. And you have someone like Leland at the center of that, and just kind of calmly collecting all the information that is needed, and just reminds me of how fun this all is. That you need this job. You need someone to be like, yep, I got it. You want to know that creature's name? Yeah, okay, we got it. We determined this here. And there's a lot of other people that do this with the story group and all that kind of stuff. I know, but to me, Leland has always been at the top of the chain of command, so to speak, for me. And I just appreciate his presence here in the Star Wars world.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of the actual real world Jocasta Nu.
Yeah,
the collector and keeper of information. It's great. The whole holocron name and idea. Scrolling through his entry on Wikipedia, and there are some great quotes here. Since Star Wars has become my job, it's been impossible for me to watch the films in the same way again. I'm too busy looking for which background character hasn't been named, or trying to figure out how many days it took to fly from Dagobah to Bespin. However, while the actual experience of watching the films has changed for me, my love for Star Wars has not. I don't know what the date is on that, but it was an interview with Wizards.com. Yeah, I mean, and that is, I don't know, it's clearly like a good and necessary job for a huge franchise like this.
Makes sense, yeah.
But it's also kind of a fascinating job because it is, I think Lucas and many of the main creatives who have followed him are like, hyperspace travel takes the time of the plot, and we're not going to get overly, we're going to try to stay within continuity or that, but it's a space fantasy and creative rules and story rules. And I think, I have no idea how many times Leland Chee was like, oh boy. Now I got to kind of make an answer for that kind of thing. but I think to me, there's a spirit of fun in that, of like, okay, we all agree that this is how there's a reason that hyperspace seems slower or faster in different films. And it's fun to go like, okay, well, what could that answer be? And I think it's fascinating to have a career that is sometimes as straightforward as, we never gave that dinosaur guy a name.
Yeah.
Like, where's the damn name of the rabbit dude who's playing Sabak with Solo? I don't know if the rabbit dude's got a name yet on some top trading card.
Yeah.
Um, but I think
Mm,
it's really cool to have that job and to keep it and you have to, I think, take it deadly serious, but also say,
yeah.
this is in the spirit of fun. This is in the spirit of how can we add more verisimilitude to a fantasy?
I love that they're in Wikipedia recounting he handled the different levels of canon back in the day. So the George canon was the top one, and it recounts the George telling Jon Stewart, "Yeah, Obi-Wan's from Stew John," and just you thinking, you bring it up that at some point, Leland, she was like, "What now? Okay,
All right.
let's go do it. Let's go do it."
I don't judge the facts. I keep the facts. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. There's number 6, Leland Shee, the keeper of the Star Wars holocron. But we're up to number 5. Number 5.
So that means I have 3 picks left.
You do.
This is really hard because now this is where we get to, do you highlight people who have not had their praises sung as often, or
Mhm.
do you start getting down to you can't leave that person off, right? Um, which is very, very difficult for me. I need more pens to throw. All right, I'm gonna go rogue. I'm gonna
Yep.
go rogue and highlight somebody who I think gets complimented often without her name actually being invoked. And that is the editor who often works with J.J. Abrams, who worked on both Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, Marion Brandon.
Mm.
Now, she was the
Mhm.
co-editor on both of the films. On Force Awakens, she worked with Mary Jo Markey, and on Rise of Skywalker, she worked with Stefan Grube. Apologies if I do not have that pronunciation correct. But I think there's some things that some specific scenes that get highlighted by fans a lot, and a lot of the magic of them is the editing.
Mm.
In our anniversary of The Force Awakens, we have had reason to discuss multiple times how amazing Rey's introduction is. And we have honored John Williams, as we should, and
Mm.
Daisy Ridley, and J.J. Abrams and the cinematographer for picking some of those shots.
Right.
But that thing is made entirely in the rhythm of the edit. Um, Everything that we appreciate about that we talked about in The Force Awakens, about the way everybody is introduced mask first, the reveals of all of our legacy characters and how those are handled. That is in the way it's shot, but it is also absolutely in the way it's edited.
Mm.
Um, Rise of Skywalker, I understand if some people don't like it and think it moves too fast, but that is a choice. That is a choice that they made
Mm.
to take it back to the whiz bang serial. And there's all sorts of movement in the camera, but there's a ton of movement in the editing. And with how often those cameras are moving, it's an amazing editing job to keep everything smooth with the movement of the edits, along with the movement, marrying with the movement of the camera. Uh,
Mm.
I think the sequence that I know you and I are both big fans of, that we have highlighted and complimented many times, the all of the inventive back and forth between Rey and Kylo, particularly in that duel that is happening in 2 locations at the same time. The spillage of the red berries, the
Mhm.
plunk down of
Mm.
Vader's helmet. That is in how it's shot and storyboarded, but it is also absolutely in how it's edited. Um, Trying to make things work and be clever after the fact. I think Marion Brandon's been highlighted in a couple of instances of the Kylo slamming his helmet down in the interrogation scene with Rey in Force Awakens. It was not shot that way. That was a clip pulled from a different scene.
Mhm.
And I think some people I've heard criticize that scene because, like, well, where in space is the thing? And I am a fan of the Walter Murch School of Editing, where the number one most important thing is emotion. Does it work for the story? And that's an amazing beat for that scene. So I could go on and on. Editing's really close to my heart after I spent about 6 months of my life straight doing it for the film that I worked on. And I want to be sure to highlight some people from more modern times. So giving this one to Marion Brandon.
I think that's an excellent idea. Keeping in spirit with what we like to do around here. And it's just true. You invoking the Barry's rule is enough of that. And I love saying, like, hey, her work is celebrated. We just don't say her name. And that speaks to kind of what we're saying up top of just like, we know Paul Hirsch, Richard Chew, and of course Marsha Lucas. We've had they might show up on your list here, they might show up on mine. Who knows? But like as they possibly should. And Jennifer did the Great Jedi beat on Marsha Lucas, so we know those names because they stood the test of time. It's like what I always say in the world of music. Like your favorite artist releases a new album, you don't like it as much because it's new. And then the next album comes out and you're like, oh, that last one was great. I'm not sure about this new one. Like, that's just kind of how we are. That's just kind of how we kind of overlook the president. So let's not overlook this wonderful work. Nothing more to add on that. And yeah, I know you've been in editing hell, but it's fun, right? It's most painful fun.
It's great fun. And I think anybody who's curious about film, take your phone and come up with the different, scenes you want to shoot or the different shots of one scene and spend some time putting it together to really appreciate, like, yes, the director is going to sweep through and go, yes or no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Yes, you have storyboards, but the editor is a writer. The editor is making decisions of how this moves, what it feels, what we're thinking about. I mean, stop and think about some of your favorite films that a scene is made by a reaction shot. By a single reaction shot, right? If you didn't have that, that one shot in the thing where that actor makes that face, the scene's not the same. And it's the editor who did that. So I just feel like we should put, even more respect and attention on editors' names.
I agree with that, Marion. Brandon, number 5, as we continue to count down our favorite Star Wars BTS heroes. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the title. Maybe I just discovered it. And I'm gonna wild card myself. This might have been maybe earlier, but I just didn't know what to do with it. And it's a way to get in a legend, but also recognizing names that are often not talked about. And it's kind of like a rock band. I'm talking about Ralph McQuarrie and the Matte Painters.
Nice.
Saw them open up for the Flying Burrito Brothers in 72. Of course, we know Ralph McQuarrie, and that could be a name just by himself. And maybe he was on your list and I just stole him, Joseph, but that's the fun in this. He's a legend for all the reasons that we know and celebrate. And George, struggling to sell the film to executives and the people maybe even trying to work with him. And he finds Ralph McQuarrie, drawing airplanes up in Boeing and we all know that story. But I wanted to acknowledge part of like my youth and part of my, wow, that was a painting. And that includes some of the ones that do stand out. We sometimes make a little joke of Lando and Han standing in front of a painting of the Millennium Falcon and Return of the Jedi. But I love that, to be clear. That isn't like, that's just like part of the magic that we accepted because we had joy in our hearts versus nowadays sometimes, or even me getting grumpy about the volume. Like I should be reminded of my 7-year-old self that was like, I'm in. That's the Millennium Falcon. They're standing in front of it. Ralph McQuarrie, Harrison Ellenshaw, Mike Pangrazio, Chris Evans, and Frank Ordaz are the names that I pulled today. And there along the way may be other people that worked on them as well. But the ILM doc, this was one of the things that the excellent ILM doc that Larry Kasdan put together. And I know they got season 2, which I think is equally as fun. But they drilled into some of these legends. They drilled down on their accomplishments and just spending time with Harrison Ellenshaw in a way that we hadn't spent time before, and the rest of the gang. And we, I think, focus on correctly McQuarrie and the concept designs and the concept art, and how it inspired, Anthony Daniels to find the character and voice of C-3PO. All those things are legendary stories for reasons. But the fact that McQuarrie was like, give me a pen, I'm in the trenches, and let's do this. And let me paint Cloud City with the Falcon there, where Han and Lando and Chewie and Leia meet for the first time. Let's go into Hoth, and this is how this was the technology available, and it's so tactile, it's so human created, and that's not just a shot at AI, but this later on, you know. I sound like those grumpy Lucasfilm employees in the 80s and 90s, like computers are going to design these dinosaurs. And I love that, and that's the natural flow of a lot of things. I get it, not criticize it, and I think George Lucas still has dreams of, should I go back and direct Star Wars because the volume is what it is now. Like I believe in it. Don't think he will, but I just love looking at those paintings and remembering it. And I today synced up the picture with the person, and it's Harrison Ellenshaw, who was painting a Bright Tree Village, essentially. And that was, as a kid, like the first photo, as I'm reading, I probably got it buried in here, one of the behind the scenes magazines, and where I was just like, whoa, that was a painting? You're telling me that was a painting? And that was 7, 8, 9 years old. The shot of the rebel fleet inside Home One before the Battle of Endor, like, okay, I think, wow, it was a painting, but it was that picture of Bright Tree Village, the Ewoks on Endor, and just today I was going through some of the photos of these artists, and there's Harrison in front of the photo, and I'm like, yeah. So I grew up with the names, I grew up with the skills. I want to celebrate them today. Ralph McQuarrie and the Matte Painters.
I think that's fantastic. The first and most important thing I have to say is I know that shot you're talking about in Return of the Jedi, where the painting of the Falcon doesn't look great, but it's not the matte painter's fault. I think it's the way it was shot. It's the flat angle against the kind of green screen. It is almost like it's the same thing as the volume, in my opinion. The more that changes, the more things stay the same. The volume looks bad when it's too flat of a shot. There's shots in the dreaded, beloved Chapter 5 of Season 1 of Mandalorian, Episode 5, Season 1 of Mandalorian, where Mando's just kind of standing too flat against the background, and then you lose the illusion. So it's not the matte painter's fault. It's not the volume's fault. It's the angles, I think. Anyway, Ralph McQuarrie is probably the earliest behind the scenes name I know because of the Topps trading cards. I was obsessed in 1980, in 81 and 82 of trying to collect them all for the Empire Strikes Back trading cards. And a part of it was the Ralph McQuarrie paintings. And I remember at first having, like, as you know, a 7-year-old, I didn't know the term uncanny valley, but I had a little bit of like, that's Luke, but not quite. And at first it weirded me out. And I think my brother and my dad probably explained to me, like, well, these are paintings they did to have the ideas. And then you eventually just kind of fall in love with the images themselves, you know? And I think you're so right to celebrate the matte painting, the illusions that we don't see. And I know Ralph McQuarrie is kind of the opposite of some of the people who talk about it. He gets celebrated quite a bit, and he should.
Yeah, you should, yeah.
But the importance in Star Wars would not exist without someone doing the work that he did. And maybe if somebody else did, it wouldn't have hit, because the deep need for people to visualize things. I had this experience on the film that I worked on too, is there were many people who did a great job on the film in their department, and only at the premiere did they say, have to be honest, I read the script 5 times, I paid super big attention to my job, I didn't know what the hell you were doing, I couldn't picture that scene. And now that I see it, now I know what it was. It just, like, how hard it is for us to visualize what is in somebody else's mind. You know, we talk about Ralph McQuarrie's drawings as like it's a sales tool for those stupid executives who didn't get it. But, like, it is so much more than that. It is making it real and tangible. And I think it is important that there were paintings, because that's what Lucas wanted to do, is make it feel real and tangible. So the fact that 3PO had a soul, and you can feel that painting of, like, what are these droids aren't in a hallway. They have emotions, and they're lost in this, barren world, it's just like it's so tactile and it's so important to be able to imagine the world.
It's important. And also, you mentioned the trading cards, just fun. I still have some cards from the 90s with like various pieces of Star Wars art on them that are just fun to have. And McQuarrie, I think, yeah, exactly behind that. And then, again, shout out to the names that made me believe in the Ewok village being real. Still is in my heart.
Yeah, I got a Ralph McQuarrie painting of Cloud City above my desk as well. Yeah.
Oh, and I'll take that quote unquote bad Millennium Falcon. I'll take that painting and put it on a van. I want to buy a van, just have that as my van mural. I do think it's great. I agree with you. I overshot.
Yeah.
All right. We got 3 choices left, 2 for you, 1 for me, but we're up to your next one and our number 3.
Oh my God.
I just looked at my notes. I was like, oh, I know we say it's our favorite, but even I'd be mad at myself if I didn't name like 6 of the names I have.
So I'm trying to figure out how to best address this, because I realize now that my list has a kind of bent and there's some things that it's ignoring. There's one person that I don't want to steal from you. But okay, I'm just gonna go with my heart. I think I might be, from looking at it from one perspective, I might be stealing from you. Looking at it from another perspective, I might be freeing up some space for you. But this is my truth. My number 3 is God bleeping Rick McCallum.
He was not. I gotta tell you, somewhere Scotty J-Ro and Jerry the Cannon Junkie, the Bomb Bag Cast, just screamed with joy. He was not on my list, and I can't believe he wasn't.
So
I'm glad you did that.
Much personality, because if we're going back to like, I've highlighted some people, like I've heard Trisha Begar speak once or twice. I've heard Marion Brandon's in the I remember her saying things in the Rise of Skywalker behind the scenes. Rick McCallum is arguably the star of all of the prequels behind the scenes. Older Rick McCallum was the star to me of some of the scenes in the 2nd season of the Industrial Light and Magic doc.
Yes,
where he's talking about like, I wrote down a number on a piece of paper and I slid it over to them, and that's what they had to hit. And that was it. And that's what a producer does. He's just got so much personality and enthusiasm. We've joked about it a million times. The gum chomping, get it done, get mad and swear at it, but also just like, I don't know. I'm sure. I know he felt massive pressure. He's talked about it. But in those behind the scenes things that are not like sit down interviews, it's just like, hey, you're on set and everything is falling apart, and we're talking to you, and he's still like, George wanted X, so I found a way, and he just had such enthusiasm about it, and no questioning of George, which some people maybe say, well, he should have been. But I think he's a vision of a producer who is not like a co-creator creatively, but a producer who's like, there are silos, man. And George, your job is to tell me what you want, and my job is to find any way on hell, heaven, and earth to bleeping make it happen. And I think, producer is the slipperiest term that can mean everything from my aunt gave me $2,000 to I co-wrote the story and directed some of the scenes. Producer could mean any of those things, and you can get executive and consulting and blah, blah, blah that breaks it down more. But I think there is a vision of the kind of producer that, by all accounts, Gary Kurtz was, who was like, had a heavy creative hand and a heavy voice. And I think there are producers like Rick McCallum who are just like, tell me the job, and whatever it is, I will get it done. He's so charming. He's so fascinating. I learned a lot about what producing is just from watching Rick McCallum. And apologies for constantly bringing up the film that I'm working on right now, and this will be the last time. But man, I had to be Rick McCallum and George Lucas on the film. I had help from other people. I had co-producers, but there were times where it's just like, I would cut off a limb to have a Rick McCallum right now, to have somebody. And there were parts of the process where I did, but there are other parts where I didn't, to just be like, I'm doing the creative. Here's the problem that I have. You just go solve it. And again, there were moments where I did, but not like this sort of like partner throughout the entire process of the prequels that Rick McCallum clearly was to George Lucas.
Yeah. This is I apologize. I'm in the back. I'm typing. I want to make sure I get a quote right. Yeah. I think Rick McCallum has, over the last couple of years, with the prequel generation taking over, has got a bit of a justified renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at Ahmed Best, and then Jake Lloyd and I actually still think Natalie Portman and her involvement stars as names that like have survived the prequel hate, right? And that needed and still maybe need, when time is right for Jake, if it's ever time, or with Natalie Portman, of like, come on back, right? Like Ahmed Best being celebrated after he was torn down to the point of almost his own destruction. Is maybe important. Rick McCallum's all right. Okay. Rick McCallum went to Bulgaria, retired to make films out there. He's all right. He's chomping gum. And you're right. That second season when they're like, we got Rick McCallum, it's great. But there was a lot of what you touched upon. He's just a yes man. And then, there's a very famous video review series that came out about 2011 or 12 with pizza rolls, kind of putting him in that category. That's why these are bad. The people like this just said yes. That ain't the truth. That ain't what happened. And my love of Rick also includes something we talk about a lot here, which is the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
That's where George pulls him in for. And so much of that series is why we have the prequels, both in how they covered things, how they talk politics, actors, Pernilla August, Oliver Ford Davies, and also Trish McGarr, and also how they made them. And Rick pulled off an impossible task, making we talk now about prestige TV and HBO Max and all these things like Andor, many films.
Mm-hmm.
Young Indiana Jones Chronicles was that on TV weekly. It was a monumental task. And so George naturally goes, yeah, I need you here. And I love in the second season doc where George kind of have the, yeah, he was an asshole. I needed that. And for all I was just looking up I think we all love the gum chomping. We love the him calling, getting the phone call from Ewan McGregor. We're going to do this and gum chomping and fuck yeah and all that stuff. And we'll swear in honor of Rick McCallum here today on ForceCenter. But I love the sandstorm. The sandstorm
is the greatest ever.
Have you tried Algeria over? Just in the midst of your big production has just collapsed. It's just collapsed. You're driving onto this giant practical set, and Mother Nature has destroyed it. And you still got jokes, and you still get it done, and you still got to, sometimes maybe like a old crusty football coach, put the gas pedal down and make it happen. So yes, celebrate Rick McCallum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think over lunch today I'm going to rewatch the beginning.
I haven't watched that in so long. I might too.
Yeah, I think it's
might need that.
It's only like an hour.
Yeah.
My Empire Dreams is great for other reasons. The Island Doc we talk about. The beginning might be the best Star Wars making of doc. Actually, and then a great one, Director in the Jedi. I love the Rise of Skywalker one.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning is just an absolute pop song. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. You got a great choice. You got me excited there. All right. I thought you were going to steal this number 2 choice, but I got to go. I got to put it on record. My number 2 choice and my final selection today for favorite BTS Star Wars heroes is Phil Tippett. All right. You could pick one of 72 names from the little shed over in Van Nuys on Valjean near the Van Nuys Golf Course and the Van Nuys Airport. You could pick a lot of those names, and maybe you still might want to pick them. We could probably just do an entire best our favorite ILM employees. I choose Phil, and you, me, Jennifer have been doing this long enough to where we joke like aunts and uncles at parties who tell the same stories again. I know I've said some of this stuff, but I want to put on the record here. So 2 things, one of my big regrets is in Anaheim. You and I walked out, I think, or maybe I was going to meet you, but we walked out of the hotel.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there, right? Yeah. And Phil Tippett was sitting over there with maybe an assistant or someone. And I don't like doing the bum rush in someone who's just like catching a breath because conventions are busy and exhausting, and
Oh
overwhelming.
yeah.
I regret just not saying something, but also I was a little scared because Phil's a character, right? Not that there's like stories of him being bad or anything, but I just was like, him. I wish I talked to Frank Oz when I had the chance at the Last Jedi party, but like because of me being terrified of the Rancor monster, and me always being a little scaredy cat, but me being afraid, me not kind of wanting to go back and see the movie, me wanting to close my eyes to that part, and it was that behind the scenes magazine that I saw that. I didn't realize that, hey, they tried to do the Rancor monster various ways and they end up with the kind of the maquette. But at one point they try Phil Tippett in a costume. And there's something about seeing a human being named Phil Tippett in a Rancor costume that made me go, all right, it's not real. I'm not going to be chomped on like a Gamorrean guard down there. And two, there's people behind it. I mentioned the matte painting, and I think all of us from our generation, or actually any Star Wars generation, if you're of a certain young age and you're just, the magic of movies is pure magic to me, you do start to focus on these people that make it happen. That's why we're celebrating this list. Could be an editor, could be a concept artist. And for me, Phil represents what ILM did, as clearly so many wonderful names there. Dykes for inventing a camera, Dennis Muir, and we could talk for hours. Phil represented something special to me. He was one of the first names I learned about, glommed onto, and understood what they did. And I don't have the skills to do it. I remember thinking, like, could I do? Nah, I can't do it. I can't slowly move a AT-AT walker across the snow. And then just what he's become.
Patience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what he's become about the honesty about some of his mental health and learning about who he was and overcoming bouts of depression. He's been very open and honest to that. Some of the recent interviews, and he continues to do work both in Star Wars. He did some stuff for Rian Johnson in the crime show that they had on Peacock. He and Natasha Lyonne. Why am I forgetting that? Poker Face. And they did a whole episode kind of character based around him.
It was great.
It was great, and he's still going. He's still going strong. And as you and I get older, I hate to say it's true, I shave my beard and I feel 70, not younger. I just love artists getting the chance to continue to work, because we are kind of told that that's not how it happens. And if you want to retire off into the sunset, great. If you want to go with Rick McCallum to Bulgaria and make films, great. But the fact that Phil's still got a creature shop, that he's still doing work, that he's still making things happen. I think there was a recent other film he put out. I just love that. I love that he gets to keep going, and he's absolutely specifically one of the people that made me fall in love with Star Wars. So I have to put Phil Tippett on the list at number 2.
Yeah, and he's definitely up there too, as you're saying, for contribution, but also for like personality in the behind the scenes and really seeing the human side of the story, the glory and the pain and the sacrifice and the it's not all it's not all Academy Awards. I remember just being sort of awestruck by some of the behind the scenes stuff of the walkers. Like I knew the AT-ATs, AT-ATs, were stop motiony, but man, just watching that story of, we could have just repeated Star Wars, but we were like, what would make it even more difficult? A battle on a snow planet, and the movement of the walkers is so cool, and the patience and the creativity and the skill to watch the glory of that all the way up to like the his real honesty about feeling like it's an extinction level event, like getting kicked off Jurassic Park up to a point, which I will talk about as well, of the kid. I mean, one of the first genre things I ever saw was when I lived briefly in Portland, Oregon. The library played old movies, and they played King Kong, and I saw King Kong twice. And so that's deep in my soul. And like to have, somebody like Phil Tippett being like, I'm going to, in the 90s, I'm going to do a King Kong with the dinosaurs, and I'm going to make all this and get that far, and just be like, nope.
Yeah.
And then of course the story being that he becomes the dinosaur supervisor, and that all of the movement and the personality and so much of what made Jurassic Park work was was the computer technology, but it's also the personality and the humanity and the tactile presence. And I kind of feel like we're at that point in filmmaking where tools are tools, and what's important is things feel tactile and real. And Phil Tippett is somebody who has always found um, has stayed alive in the industry, providing things that are tactile and real. And even when, like in Jurassic Park, it's nothing but ones and zeros on the screen, the reality, his understanding of emotion, is what sells it. And he's just such a reminder that tools are tools, but it needs to feel tactile and real. And he has always been a champion of that.
No, well said. Tools are tools is a great way to look at it. And that's always going to change, adapt, and all that good stuff. But humanity, the artist's choice, always need to remain. Always need to remain at the center of it. And Phil Tippett's a great example of that. And I swear, the next time I see him, I will politely, calmly go blubber in front of him.
I tried to encourage you, and you were pretty clear.
No, that's the forgotten part of the story.
You weren't going. Yeah.
That was forgotten part of the story. Is you did say that. I just had this like blah, 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 blah. Nope. We should not go over there. We should not go over there. I wish I
should have just went and I think he was like waiting for a ride, and there was definitely like it is the beginning of the convention day. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I almost should have just encouraged you to just go, like, just sit by him and sigh, like you're waiting. Like you were waiting for the bus too.
Yeah,
because I think that was the vibe.
What do you do? I'm a Star Wars podcaster. What do you do?
Yeah.
Next up. Los Angeles, 2027. We'll have more chances.
Yeah.
More chances.
Yeah.
All right. This list is going to be wonderfully incomplete because we've reached number one, Joseph, your final choice of the day. We have some wonderful names already down here, but we need to close this out with something grand. What do you have?
Yeah, it's a very weird list that's partially the big names, and it is partially the people who don't get as much attention as they should, but I'm ending just with my honest choice, and it is the star of Rod Flash Conquers Infinity, Ben Burtt. I had the absolute joy of seeing Ben Burtt give a talk at the Academy Museum for free. And I think he is working on something to sort of release maybe a sort of a documentary autobiography, because he had the most complete and beautiful slideshow with all sorts of behind the scenes stories that I haven't heard other places. And somebody who works at the Academy Museum says we usually archive these talks, and Ben asked us not to. So there's the sense of like, is he building something? Anyway,
that'd be great.
I know I've gone on and on about Ben Burtt in recent times, but just the contribution of the sound effects from the original, the revolution in sound effects, just the fact that he spent, a year gathering sounds, taking on every challenge, from the lightsabers to Chewbacca to R2-D2 to the famous, hitting the power cables to get the laser bolts. The contribution, not just in, most sound effects at that time were mostly just you go through the library, right? The contribution that the sounds are really cool and awesome. That's amazing. But the contribution of making the film feel organic and real. A lot of science fiction had been, synthesizers and all sorts of electronic means of creating sounds, theremins. The fact that Chewie sounds so real because the sounds were recorded from the real Earth, I think. I think Ben Burtt's contribution to Star Wars is up there with Ralph McQuarrie, with John Williams, with John Molo for the costume design, with Dykstra for the camera. That the success is impossible without Ben Burtt. And he could have just walked away and never done anything else in Star Wars, and he would be an MVP. But then to stay with the company and to continue to build the library and the philosophy of sound design, and then to move into editing and to have edited the prequels and done all the pre-visualization. And then in terms of just the sort of the personality because this list for me is a combination of contribution and personality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's an older gentleman now, and when he talks about things, there is still the sparkle in the eye, like he is a kid playing with toys. Like he can't believe he spent his entire life
Mm-hmm.
playing with toys and embracing not just the fun, whiz bang, weird pulp side of things, but the wonder and the awe of science fiction and fantasy and the why of it. If anybody ever visits Los Angeles or lives here, I implore you to go to the Academy Museum and go to the permanent exhibit that Ben Burt has up, which is this almost 360-degree. The only break is the door to walk in montage of science fiction films grouped in themes of,
Mm-hmm.
destruction, heroes, communication, connection, flight, jumping to faster speeds of travel. It's not only an absolute masterpiece in editing, it is a almost wordless essay on why science fiction and fantasy matter.
Mm.
And in some ways, it's like you can celebrate him for every contribution to Star Wars, but like that display, that exhibit, that film
Mm.
is like an expression of this guy's soul. Of here is why these films speak to me. Here's why I dedicated my life to this genre.
No, I think he is the choice. We just celebrated him recently for being the first 50-year employee of
Mm-hmm.
Lucasfilm, which again speaks to corporations be damned, and it itself is a corporation, but just someone who was there at the beginning, still going on, still having passion. And I laugh too because that's 50 years of Ben. Next week is the HR meeting for healthcare. Can you re-up your next week? Right, 2:00. Get on the Zoom call. 50 years of being. Can you get your employee ID photo taken? It's amazing. Nah, he is everything, and you're highlighting his well-versed resume. The fact that in the beginning, Doc, that he is in there, he's the one editing, he's the one talking, he's the one kind of questioning what George was doing at times, but making it happen, and I love that too. And I love recently voicing BD1 in Star Wars Fallen Order and Survivor, like, and the excitement for him quote coming back, even though again he's been employed the entire time. But his name is certainly, like you said, could have stopped with A New Hope. Like could have stopped with the New Hope original trilogy. Name would be etched in stone around these parts forever. But he's still going, still passionate. What we talked about with some of these people here today of like the love, the fan, their own kind of fandom. I think Ben Burt's a fan of this, not just Star Wars, but the storytelling. You're so right. And recently, I had the chance. A friend hired me to just for a 30-minute animatic, for an animated film. Could you put some sound effects down here? Just go to YouTube. Just go YouTube, source, whatever, and some of it's pretty easy. There's fireworks. I'll go find distantfireworks.mp3. Great, got it. But there were some that had to woo, what does an energy orb sound like? Ooh, What does it mean? I had a lot of fun. I don't know if I succeeded. He paid me, but I don't know if I succeeded. But I had a lot of fun. And I was thinking about Ben Burt and the stories, and you mentioned perhaps the most famous one of all, strikes the cable and gets the blaster sound. At what point do you think that? At what point in this genius brain do you go, I need a laser gun for a space story? How do I do that? The imagination has no bounds at this point. I'm going to strike a cable and see what that does. And I'd love to see the things that didn't work. You're so right. Chewie is, everyone's got a Chewbacca impression, good or bad. The reason it worked is it was of our Earth. It was of our experiences. It was familiar with being so foreign and different to us. So it should never go over our heads, the accomplishments of Ben Burt in this world that we live in as a Star Wars fans.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up your experience with doing some sound design, because I think that is, I think in the list of like, hey, you need a little something creative in your life, you need to show it to anybody. Make a little film with your phone, and you will have the most fun with the sound design, because what you're doing is you're just looking at the world in an entirely new light of like, hey, I wonder if my chair would squeak right to sound like an alien.
Mm-hmm.
Only this chair, only on this part of my uneven floor, I'll push on it weird and
Yeah.
see if I get something. Like
Yeah.
the amount of just like you look around your own world with different eyes. And I
Mm-hmm.
just like, I'm so envious to hear about like the year he had to just wander the earth going, I wonder what that sounds like.
Yeah.
To make the brilliance of
Yeah.
Star Wars 1977.
Love it. Yeah. Ben Burt, and Matthew Wood, the protege, becomes the number one in a lot of ways with the sequel era and all that kind of stuff. Get that, but I love that we could maybe still get a surprise contribution from Ben Burt every now and then. All right. We did it. Phil Shostak, Trisha Biggar, Lynn Hale, Nick Allard, Leland Shee, Marion Brandon, Ralph McQuarrie, the Matt Painters, Rick McCallum, and Phil Tippett, and number one, Ben Burt. Here's the thing. All right, we say this a lot on Star Wars Rank. This is just our list. That's why we put the word our favorite, or the words our favorite, as opposed to what we used to do with the best. But this is a conversation starter. So if you're just swinging through, you don't really know who we are, you don't need to yell. If you have a choice, you have a name that absolutely would be on your list, please share it in the comments on YouTube or reach out on social or in the Discord, as they often do. Just share your own names. We're just starting the conversation. You get to continue it. But a lot of fun putting together this list here today. And I am going to go watch the beginning.
You should. Did you have a lot of runner-ups on your list, Ken?
I guess we should go over some of those. That's only fair. You're right. All right. I mentioned Matthew Wood.
Yep.
It's Doug Chang. Doug Chang at this point's in the Hall of Fame.
Doug Chang and John Williams felt like,
yeah.
Well, I mean, Ben Burt and Ralph McQuarrie are also in the Hall of Fame. But
sure.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
But I had him on the list. John Knoll. I want to put John Knoll in there too.
Yeah.
Almost because you and I are talking about how some of these folks are in behind the scenes stuff. Rick McCallum is all vibes and energy and personality. And like John Knoll's like the other side of that. He's just this.
He's so chill.
He's so chill. This tech nerd that got a dream job and well before working on Star Wars. And that I love when he's even on those roundtables around the Mandalorian stuff of just like every year we'd ask George, we can do more Star Wars, just fans. And then he and his brother just on the side invent Photoshop. I think John Knoll's up there as well.
My wife says that every time she sees him, that's a person she knows from behind the scenes, and she's like, and he just co-invented Photoshop too, right? And like,
just cause,
just cause.
You?
Yeah, a couple for me. Dennis Muren is obviously like a huge contribution to all of ILM, but he's one of those ones that I'm just kind of obsessed with Dennis Muren, and like he's got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and I'm so happy every time I walk by it. He is lodged in my brain from the VHS copies of the special edition that started with a little making of about the special edition. So these would have come out like right after. So like, I can't even remember. I don't remember, but it's late 90s, maybe late 97, early 98 they came out. But I watched them again and again. And there was a little thing where he said, so a lot of the special editions we did so we could figure out how to do the prequels. And that delivery was I never fast forwarded because I wanted to hear Dennis Muren say the prequels. So
that's
he's on the list. A couple of people that I think don't get shouted out as much, or one in particular is Nilo Rodis Jamiro, who was a designer for Empire Strikes Back, who designed Boba Fett's starship, and then segued into being the costume designer for Return of the Jedi. Like, I think an unsung name that doesn't get as much respect put on it. And then there are a couple of gentlemen that I love for Star Wars and their contribution to Star Wars, but also part of my fascination with them is what the other things they've gone on to do. And that is Joe Johnston, who, of course, goes on to make some fabulous films himself, and Dwayne Dunham, who is an assistant editor for the first two films and one of the editors on Return of the Jedi. And he goes on to have deep involvement with David Lynch, editor of Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart, editor of many episodes of Twin Peaks, and the director of the first episode of Twin Peaks after the pilot, which is just like he's somebody who helped define Star Wars and Twin Peaks. Amazing.
No, Ken Ralston, Lauren Peterson. I was put down
Oh,
based
yes.
on massive accomplishments, and that ILM doc really kind of elevated him in a way, and put him up with some of the other bigger Hall of Fame names. But I just love all through Empire Dreams. He's got this lovable hippie vibe that was ILM in the 70s, and I love listening to him speak.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. That's our list. That's our close calls. We're yours. Like I said, let us know. We want to hear. It's a conversation starter right here. A lot of fun. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/ForceCenter. Get some merch at Fourth Wall, TeePublic. Links down below if you're watching on YouTube. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Like the video. Leave a nice comment. Hype the video up. Let's get those hype points going, kids. Still don't know what it does. If you're listening on the audio podcast version, thanks for being there. Don't forget, on the audio podcast feed, every Sunday we rebroadcast Data Bank Brawl. Follow me at KetNapSock or my website, ketnapsock.com, for all the fun and silly things I do. And Joseph, where can they follow you? You're back to doing a little bit of blogging, right? With Finish Your Monsters, I saw. A little bit.
Yep. Finish Your Monsters is a weekly blog. I took a little break, but I'm going to get back to weekly. Right now it's coming out every Wednesday, and I share a little bit of the creative goals I set for myself and other creative adventures, and hopefully encourage other people to set themselves some creative goals and find some joy that way. You can find out the link in where to read and subscribe on my website, josephscrimshaw.com, or I post about it on all of my social media. My handle everywhere is at Joseph Scrimshaw. I'll also say that we're having some fun celebrating Star Wars, finding some joy. I have a heavy heart right now because of what is going on in my hometown of Minneapolis. And if you haven't taken some time to take a look on social media, I implore you to find some people who are there on the ground and really read up about what is truly going on there. I think it's very important for what is going on with the nation and the world.
It is indeed. So stay plugged in, stay connected, and we will see you next time. That is it for now. Star Wars has been ranked.